She woke up to the soft light of early morning slipping through the thin curtains of her bedroom. The house was quiet, as it usually was before the day began. Her husband had already left for work, like he did every morning for the past 10 years. She listened to the familiar sounds of the neighborhood slowly coming alive. The distant bark of a dog, the hum of a car passing by, the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. She stretched, letting her arms reach toward the ceiling, and thought about her first cup of tea and the day ahead. Her routine had become predictable, almost comforting in its regularity. She moved through the house quietly, careful not to wake anyone, though the house was usually empty except for her. The kitchen smelled faintly of the coffee she had brewed the night before. She poured herself a cup, letting the warmth seep into her hands, and thought about the horse waiting for her in the barn. It was strange, how she had come to rely on the presence of an animal more than a human in her life, but there was a sense of peace in it, a quiet companionship that filled the spaces her husband never seemed to reach. The barn was just a short walk from the back door, and she could see the horse through the morning mist as she approached. Its coat glistened slightly with dew, and it lifted its head when it saw her. There was a gentle intelligence in its eyes, a silent understanding that made her smile. She ran her hand along its neck, feeling the muscles beneath its skin, and whispered a greeting that the horse seemed to respond to with a soft nuzzle. She had never been a morning person, but this moment, standing in the cool air with her horse close by, made mornings feel alive and full of quiet joy. After brushing and feeding, she led the horse to the small paddock behind the barn. As it moved freely, she sat on the bench nearby, her hands wrapped around the cup of tea that had gone cold. She watched it trot, toss its head, and occasionally pause to look back at her. There was a freedom in its movements that made her heart ache just a little. It was a freedom she rarely felt herself, tied as she was to the routines of a house, a marriage, a life that had grown comfortable but distant. Her husband had always been reliable in practical ways. He remembered bills, appointments, and deadlines. He could fix things around the house and make sure everything ran smoothly. But there were other things, small things that mattered more than schedules or chores, that he never seemed to notice. Birthdays passed with polite acknowledgement rather than heartfelt celebration. Milestones in her life were met with brief congratulations, but never with real attention. He was present physically, but emotionally he remained distant, always caught up in tasks and responsibilities. In contrast, her horse seemed to sense every nuance of her mood. When she felt sad or frustrated, it would come close and nuzzle her hand. When she was happy, it pranced and tossed its mane, almost celebrating with her. There was no judgment in its eyes, no expectation, just a pure, unwavering presence that made her feel seen. It was a strange kind of intimacy, one that she had never experienced with another human, and yet she felt guilty sometimes for feeling this bond so strongly, for relying on it more than the love that she had expected to receive from her husband. The day moved on, and she returned inside to start her own work. She managed a small business from home, handling orders, calls, and emails. It was demanding, but it gave her a sense of purpose. As she worked, she could hear the faint sounds of her horse moving in the paddock, a comforting backdrop to her day. Sometimes she would pause, stepping outside to watch it, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. Her husband returned in the evening, tired from his long day. He greeted her with a quick smile and a nod, and they exchanged the usual small talk about his work and her day. He never noticed the little things, the way she had stayed up late finishing a difficult project, the way her eyes had been red from crying quietly that morning, or the way she had laughed freely with her horse in the paddock. He cared in his way, but it was a practical, surface-level care, never reaching the deeper parts of her heart. After dinner, she went back to the barn. The horse was waiting as if it had known she would come. She ran her hands over its mane, feeling the familiar warmth and strength beneath her fingers. There was a silence in these moments, a wordless understanding that made her heart feel full and heavy at the same time. She talked to it sometimes, sharing thoughts and feelings she never voiced to anyone else. It listened, patiently, never interrupting, never judging. The night sky spread above them as she led the horse back into the barn. Stars twinkled faintly and the air was cool and fresh. She lingered, resting her forehead against its neck, letting herself be comforted by its steady presence. In that moment, she realized something she had always known but rarely admitted aloud. Her horse understood her in ways that no human ever had. And while it brought her joy and peace, it also highlighted the emptiness she sometimes felt in her marriage. She went to bed later, feeling the weight of the day and the quiet companionship she had found in her horse. Her husband slept beside her, breathing steadily, unaware of the inner life she carried, the secret intimacy she shared with an animal that had become her confidant. She did not resent him. She loved him in her own way. But there was a part of her that longed for connection, for recognition, for someone to truly see her heart. And in the gentle eyes of her horse, she found a reflection of that longing, a small but vital piece of the understanding she had been seeking all her life. Sleep came slowly that night, her mind filled with images of the day, the sun on the paddock, the soft nuzzle of the horse, the quiet moments she had stolen from the routines of life. It was a simple life, predictable in many ways, but full of small wonders and quiet companionship that kept her heart alive. She drifted into dreams with the warmth of her horse's presence lingering in her mind, a gentle reminder that even in the midst of distance and routine, love and understanding could still be found in unexpected places. The morning air was cool and crisp as she stepped outside, the faint smell of hay and earth greeting her like an old friend. Her horse was already waiting by the paddock gate, its ears flicking toward her at the slightest sound. She smiled, feeling the same warmth that had greeted her each morning for years. She had come to cherish these early hours when the world felt untouched, and the bond between her and the horse felt strongest. As she led the horse to the field, she thought about the small moments in her life that seemed to go unnoticed. Her husband, always reliable, always practical, never seemed to notice the subtle struggles she faced. A missed promotion at work, a friend moving away, a day when she felt exhausted and invisible, all went largely unacknowledged. He offered help when needed, but it was often mechanical, lacking the warmth and understanding she longed for. There were days when she tried to share her feelings only to be met with polite nods and quiet distractions. Her horse, on the other hand, seemed to know exactly how she felt. It followed her closely when she walked, brushing gently against her as if to reassure her that she was not alone. She laughed softly when it tossed its head in excitement, and at the same time felt a quiet sadness that these gestures were more comforting than the words she rarely received from her husband. The horse had become her mirror, reflecting her emotions in ways no human could. Later in the morning, she returned to the barn to feed and groom the horse. Her hands moved over its coat, brushing away dust and dirt, and she whispered small stories about her day, stories she did not share with anyone else. It listened, tilting its head, eyes calm and focused. She often wondered if her husband had ever looked at her like that, really seeing her, understanding the depth of her feelings without the need for words. The thought brought a pang to her chest, but she quickly shook it off, returning to the gentle rhythm of brushing and feeding. The routine of daily life continued, with its mix of work, chores, and small joys. She managed her home and business, keeping things running smoothly, while her husband went about his day with quiet efficiency. He would occasionally ask how her day had been, and she would answer truthfully, but the conversations rarely delved deeper. They remained polite, functional, almost rehearsed. She did not resent him for this, but she could not deny the emptiness she sometimes felt, a longing for connection that went beyond practical care. One afternoon, she faced a minor setback at work. An important order had been delayed, and she felt the frustration rise in her chest. Her husband was busy with a project of his own, absorbed in phone calls and paperwork, and she knew from experience that he would not pause to offer comfort. Instead, she took a deep breath and decided to walk to the paddock, needing the presence of someone who could truly understand. Her horse was waiting, as if sensing her mood. It nuzzled her hand and stepped closer, brushing its warm body against her side. She let out a long sigh, leaning into the horse's shoulder. She spoke softly, telling it about her frustrations and fears, her voice breaking slightly with emotion. The horse remained patient, steady, and attentive, providing a quiet support that she had learned to rely on over the years. In those moments, the world felt a little less heavy, the problems a little more manageable. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, she led the horse back to the barn. She felt a mix of gratitude and sorrow, grateful for the companionship that the horse provided, and sorrowful that such understanding was missing from her marriage. She knew her husband loved her in his way, but it was a love that often felt distant, a love that cared for her life but not always for her heart. During dinner, she and her husband ate in the usual quiet way, exchanging brief words about the day. He spoke of work and errands, and she responded politely, keeping her deeper feelings to herself. Afterward, she found herself wandering back to the barn, unable to resist the pull of the horse's quiet presence. It stood waiting, calm and patient, and she wrapped her arms around its neck, feeling the warmth and strength beneath her hands. She talked to it again, sharing memories of the past and hopes for the future. Sometimes she imagined what it would be like if her husband could offer the same kind of understanding, the same steady, unconditional presence. The thought lingered in her mind, bittersweet and heavy, but she quickly returned to the comfort of the moment. Her horse did not judge or ask questions. It simply was there, providing a quiet sanctuary for her emotions. As night fell, she led the horse back into the stall, tucking it in with care. She lingered for a moment, pressing her forehead against its soft muzzle, feeling the steady rhythm of its breathing. In that simple act, she found a sense of peace and belonging that had eluded her in other parts of her life. It was a small, precious gift, one that reminded her that connection could take many forms and that love and understanding were sometimes found in the most unexpected places. Returning to the house, she felt the weight of the day begin to ease. Her husband was already asleep, unaware of the depth of feeling that had filled her afternoon and evening. She did not resent him, nor did she feel guilty for seeking solace elsewhere. Instead, she felt a quiet clarity, a recognition that her heart needed what it needed, and that sometimes the truest forms of companionship came from those who could see and respond to her emotions without words. As she lay in bed, her thoughts drifted back to the paddock, to the quiet understanding in her horse's eyes and to the warmth of its presence. The contrast between the love she received from her husband and the emotional support she found in her horse was stark, but it was a truth she had come to accept. She closed her eyes with a sense of calm, knowing that she was not alone, that she was understood, and that the bond she shared with her horse was a source of strength and comfort that would always be there. The night passed quietly, filled with dreams of open fields and the gentle nuzzle of her companion. She woke the next morning with the same quiet anticipation, ready to face another day with the support of a friend who truly understood her heart, and with a renewed sense of resilience for the challenges and joys that life would bring. It was a morning like any other when she felt the first stirrings of worry. She had received a call from work that an urgent problem had arisen, one that required immediate attention. Her mind raced as she tried to think of solutions, and the familiar weight of anxiety settled on her shoulders. She felt tense and restless, and she knew that talking to anyone in the house would not bring relief. Her husband was already at his office, absorbed in deadlines and calls, leaving her to navigate her worries alone. She slipped into her boots and headed toward the barn, hoping the familiar presence of her horse might calm her. As she approached, she saw the horse lifting its head, ears pricked as if sensing her mood from a distance. The animal moved toward her with gentle anticipation, brushing against her hand when she reached the gate. She exhaled, the tightness in her chest easing slightly at the sight of it. In that moment, she realized once again that the horse understood her in a way no human had. She led the horse to the paddock and began brushing its coat, the rhythmic motion soothing her nerves. She whispered softly, talking through the problem she faced, imagining the horse listening and understanding her every word. Its quiet presence allowed her mind to settle, and for a short time the tension faded. The horse nuzzled her hand in response, as if offering reassurance, a gesture far more comforting than the distracted nods or hurried advice she had often received from her husband. Later that day, she decided she needed to step away from the house and work to think clearly. She saddled the horse, mounted gently, and rode through the nearby trails. The wind in her hair and the soft sound of hooves against the ground provided a sense of freedom she rarely experienced in her structured life. Her thoughts began to untangle, and she felt clarity returning. Every movement of the horse seemed in sync with her own emotions, offering support that went beyond words. As she rode, she remembered moments from the past 10 years, her marriage full of practical care but lacking emotional depth. She had tried to express herself on numerous occasions, hoping for a closer connection, but had been met with polite concern rather than heartfelt attention. In contrast, the horse had always been there, patient and intuitive, responding immediately to her moods and needs. She felt gratitude and sadness intertwined, knowing that the understanding she longed for from her husband had been present in an unexpected form all along. Returning to the barn, she untacked the horse and led it into the stall. Her hands lingered on its mane, and she whispered words of thanks for its unwavering companionship. It shifted its weight, pressing gently against her side as if acknowledging her gratitude. She stood there for a while, feeling the warmth and steady presence of an animal that had come to mean more to her than anyone else in the house. The evening brought a minor crisis. While preparing dinner, she accidentally spilled boiling water on the counter. The sudden pain and shock made her yelp, and she instinctively went to the horse for comfort. It stood calmly, nuzzling her hand and shoulder as she tended to the minor burn. The sight of the horse's steady concern reminded her of how much she depended on it, not just for companionship but for emotional stability. Her husband entered the kitchen shortly after, catching a glimpse of the scene, and muttered a distracted, "Be careful," before returning to his work at his desk. The contrast was stark and not lost on her. Later, as darkness fell, she led the horse out for a short walk around the property. The air was cool and filled with the scent of earth and grass. She talked to the horse about the day, her voice trembling slightly as she confessed fears and frustrations she had held inside. The horse listened silently, occasionally nudging her hand in a comforting gesture. She could feel the weight of loneliness easing, replaced by a quiet sense of understanding and connection. As the night deepened, she reflected on the patterns of her life. She realized how often she had ignored her own emotional needs in favor of maintaining appearances or keeping the household running smoothly. Her husband's care had always been practical, and while it had provided stability, it had left her emotional self parched. The horse, by contrast, had filled the gap she had quietly suffered, offering love, attention, and reassurance without asking anything in return. This realization stirred a mix of gratitude and melancholy within her. The next morning, she faced another challenge. A neighbor's child had wandered near the paddock and startled the horse, causing a minor commotion. She rushed to the scene, calming the horse with gentle words and soft touches. It responded immediately, settling and returning to her side with trust and affection. She realized that this trust and understanding had been built over years of shared moments, small and quiet, but profound in their impact. The horse's loyalty was unwavering, something she had rarely experienced in human relationships. Her husband came home later that day, bringing his usual tired smile and quiet conversation about work. She noticed how routine it all felt, how distant yet familiar their interactions had become. She did not blame him. He had always been consistent in his way. But she could not help feeling the difference so clearly. The horse had become the one who truly knew her, who responded to her emotions in ways no human had. That evening, she stayed with the horse in the barn longer than usual. She brushed its coat meticulously, feeling the warmth of its body and the strength beneath its skin. She whispered stories of past adventures, of fears and dreams, and the horse remained quietly attentive. In these moments, she realized that emotional connection was not always found where she had expected it. Sometimes it arrived in forms that surprised and comforted in equal measure. Night fell, and she led the horse back to the stall, lingering at the doorway, as she often did. She pressed her forehead against its neck, feeling the rhythm of its breathing, and reflected on how much this animal had shaped her emotional life. While her marriage provided practical care and stability, the horse had offered understanding, empathy, and a silent companionship that filled spaces she had long thought empty. As she returned to the house, she felt a quiet strength within her. The events of the past days had made her realize that support and love could come in unexpected forms. She could navigate life's challenges, knowing she had a steady presence beside her, one that would never fail to see her, comfort her, and understand her. She went to bed with a sense of calm, the horse's presence lingering in her thoughts, reminding her that even in the absence of human empathy, emotional bonds could flourish and sustain her through life's trials. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of open fields, gentle breezes, and the steady, loyal eyes of her companion. She woke the next morning with a renewed appreciation for the quiet, unwavering understanding that had become the heart of her life. The horse had not just been a friend, but a lifeline, guiding her through stress, worry, and solitude with a silent wisdom that human presence had rarely offered. She carried this realization with her, a quiet comfort that would stay with her long after the sun rose and the world began its daily routines once again. The morning was calm, with a gentle mist hanging over the paddocks and the soft sound of birdsong filling the air. She moved quietly, not wanting to disturb the stillness, and found the horse waiting at the gate as usual. There was a sense of familiarity in its presence, a silent understanding that made her smile. She greeted it with a gentle pat and led it out to the field, feeling the comfort of its steady company. As she brushed the horse, she thought about the past months, the countless small moments where it had been there for her, providing comfort and understanding when human presence had fallen short. She remembered the times when her husband had been distracted or busy, offering care in practical ways but never reaching the depth of her emotions. She did not blame him, but the contrast was undeniable. The horse had become the one who truly knew her, who responded to her moods and needs without question. Later, she took the horse on a long ride through the trails, letting the wind sweep across her face as she tried to clear her thoughts. She thought about the struggles she had faced in her marriage, the quiet moments of longing for attention and empathy that had gone unfulfilled. The horse moved in perfect rhythm with her, its hooves striking the ground softly, almost in tune with her heartbeat. She felt a sense of release, a freedom she rarely experienced in other areas of her life. Returning to the barn, she fed the horse and tended to its coat, lingering in the quiet moments. She spoke softly about her hopes and fears, imagining it listening and understanding every word. It shifted its weight closer to her, nuzzling her hand in a gesture that brought warmth to her chest. She realized that this connection, built over years of shared time, had become an essential part of her life. The horse's loyalty and sensitivity were qualities she had longed for from her husband, qualities that had never fully appeared. The afternoon brought an unexpected situation. A minor accident occurred on the property when a fence panel fell and trapped the horse's hoof momentarily. She rushed to its side, heart racing, and gently worked to free it. The horse remained calm despite the scare, trusting her completely. The intensity of the moment made her realize how strong their bond had grown. She whispered soothing words as she freed the hoof, feeling a mix of relief and awe at the trust between them. This act of loyalty and resilience contrasted sharply with her husband's usual detachment in times of emotional need. After the incident, she spent hours with the horse, allowing it to graze while she reflected on her life. She remembered the small gestures it had shown over the years, nuzzling her when she was sad, prancing when she was happy, standing quietly when she needed reassurance. Each action, though simple, carried profound meaning. She thought about how rare it was to find such intuitive care in another being, and how much she had come to rely on it. Her husband returned home later, exhausted from his day, speaking briefly about work and errands. She listened politely but could not ignore the emptiness that lingered in their interactions. She loved him and appreciated his reliability, but the emotional depth she craved was missing. In her heart, she knew that her horse had become the one who fulfilled those needs, providing understanding, empathy, and connection in a way that her husband had never been able to. As evening fell, she walked the horse around the paddock, the soft glow of the sunset casting long shadows across the field. She talked to it about her thoughts and reflections, sharing memories and feelings she had kept hidden. The horse responded with gentle nudges and soft movements, reinforcing the bond that had grown between them. She realized that this relationship, though unconventional, was a source of strength and comfort that she had come to depend on completely. The night brought quiet reflection. She led the horse back to the barn, tucking it in and lingering at the doorway, feeling the warmth and steady presence that had become such an integral part of her life. She pressed her forehead against its neck, closing her eyes and allowing herself to fully appreciate the depth of their connection. The horse had been there for her through challenges, anxieties, and moments of doubt, offering unwavering loyalty and understanding. As she returned to the house, she felt a mix of emotions: gratitude for the companionship her horse provided, sadness for the emotional gaps in her marriage, and clarity about the importance of recognizing and cherishing the sources of love in her life. She understood that connection and empathy could come in unexpected forms, and that sometimes the heart found solace in places that surprised the mind. Later that night, she sat quietly by the window, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. She thought about how much she had grown emotionally, how much she had come to understand herself through the bond with her horse. She realized that love and care were not always measured by words or gestures from a spouse. Sometimes they appeared in silent understanding, steadfast presence, and intuitive empathy. She lay down to sleep, feeling the quiet presence of her companion lingering in her thoughts. Dreams filled with open fields, gentle breezes, and the calm, loyal eyes of her horse carried her into a restful night. She woke the next morning with a renewed appreciation for the quiet, unwavering support that had become central to her life. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had a bond that could sustain her, provide comfort, and remind her of the depth of love that could exist beyond the ordinary expectations of marriage. Throughout the following days, she continued to observe and cherish the subtle gestures of her horse, the way it responded to her moods, the quiet companionship it offered, and the intuitive understanding that bridged the gaps her human relationships could not. She recognized that life's most profound connections often came in forms that were unexpected, and she allowed herself to embrace this truth fully. Her heart felt lighter, filled with a sense of peace and acceptance, and she carried this awareness into every moment, knowing that love in all its forms could be found and nurtured even in the quiet, unspoken bonds that defied conventional expectations. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the paddocks, illuminating the dewdrops that clung to the grass and the horse's glistening coat. She moved quietly, savoring the calm, and approached the horse with a sense of gratitude that had grown steadily over the years. Its ears twitched as she neared, and it lifted its head in recognition, stepping closer to her with the familiarity of a true companion. She wrapped her hands around its muzzle, feeling the steady warmth, and let herself enjoy the quiet intimacy. This day was different. She had spent the night reflecting on the bond she shared with her horse and how it had shaped her life in ways her marriage had not. She thought about the countless times it had been there for her, quietly, patiently, and without expectation. She realized that she had been searching for the same understanding in her husband for years, but had found it in a place she never anticipated. The thought brought both comfort and a bittersweet awareness of the limits of human relationships. As she groomed the horse, she remembered the minor challenges of the past months, the work pressures, the small accidents, the quiet disappointments in her marriage. Each of these moments had been met with an immediate, empathetic response from her horse. When she had been frustrated, anxious, or sad, it had stayed close, offering reassurance through presence rather than words. The contrast with her husband's practical but distant responses became clearer with every gentle nuzzle and soft gaze. She decided to take the horse on a long walk across the property. The trails were quiet, lined with trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. She talked softly about her thoughts and reflections, sharing memories of days gone by and dreams for the future. The horse walked calmly beside her, occasionally nudging her hand or brushing against her side, as if affirming that it understood every word. In these moments, she felt a profound sense of connection, one that transcended the limitations of human conversation. During the walk, she remembered the early days of her marriage, the excitement, the hope, the dreams of shared experiences and understanding. Over time, practical responsibilities had taken precedence, and the emotional intimacy she had longed for had slowly faded. Yet in the presence of her horse, she rediscovered a form of companionship that was steady, intuitive, and wholly accepting. It had filled a gap she had come to recognize as vital to her well-being. Later, she returned the horse to the barn, brushing and feeding it carefully. Each action was deliberate, an expression of care that mirrored the care it had given her in return. She lingered for a moment, resting her forehead against its neck, feeling the rhythm of its breathing. It was a simple gesture, but it held a weight of understanding and trust that words could never fully convey. She thought about how this bond had sustained her through challenges and brought joy to ordinary days, offering a richness to her life that she had not anticipated. Her husband came home in the evening, greeting her with his usual tired smile and brief conversation about work. She listened politely, offering responses that were friendly but restrained. The contrast between his practical care and the horse's emotional presence was undeniable. She did not feel resentment, but a clear acknowledgement of where her emotional fulfillment truly lay. She had learned that love could be expressed in many ways and that sometimes the most profound connections came in unexpected forms. That night, she spent a long time with the horse in the barn, She walked with it around the paddock under the soft glow of the moon, feeling the calm and quiet of the night. She spoke of hopes, fears, and dreams, sharing thoughts she had never voiced to anyone else. The horse remained patient and attentive, its gentle movements and responsive gestures reinforcing the bond that had become central to her life. She realized that understanding, empathy, and loyalty could be found outside traditional relationships, and that these qualities were deeply fulfilling. As she led the horse back into the stall, she paused at the doorway, resting her hand on its soft muzzle. She thought about the years she had spent longing for recognition and emotional presence from her husband, and how those needs had been met in a completely different, yet equally meaningful way. The horse had become not just a companion but a source of emotional sustenance, providing stability and comfort that had enriched her life beyond expectation. Returning to the house, she felt a sense of peace and clarity. She reflected on her journey, the quiet struggles, the moments of doubt, the deepening realization that her horse had offered a form of love and understanding that her human relationships often could not. She understood that this did not diminish her marriage, but it did illuminate the value of finding emotional fulfillment wherever it could be found, in any form that brought genuine connection and comfort. That night, she lay in bed with a sense of calm and gratitude. Her husband slept beside her, and she felt affection for him, but her heart was full in a different way. The bond she shared with her horse had become a central part of her life, offering a steady source of understanding, loyalty, and companionship. She reflected on the lessons she had learned, that emotional support could come from unexpected places, that care and empathy were as valuable as practical support, and that love did not have to fit a single mold to be meaningful. In the days that followed, she continued to nurture this unique connection. She spent time with the horse each morning, sharing her thoughts and feeling the comfort of its presence. Work, home responsibilities, and daily life continued, but she approached them with a renewed sense of balance and resilience. The quiet understanding she received from her horse had become a foundation upon which she could face life's challenges with confidence and calm. The story of her life, intertwined with the horse's loyalty and insight, became a testament to the unexpected ways in which love and care could manifest. She embraced this reality fully, recognizing that emotional fulfillment and companionship were not confined to human relationships alone. The horse had offered what she had long sought: attentiveness, empathy, and unwavering support. It had filled a void she had carried quietly for years, and in doing so, had brought her a sense of joy and completeness that was profound and enduring. As she walked through the paddocks one last time that evening, the soft light of sunset illuminating the fields, she felt a deep connection to the world around her. The horse moved beside her, calm, attentive, and responsive, embodying the loyalty and understanding that had become the heart of her emotional life. She understood now that love could be found in many forms, and that true connection could transcend expectations, bringing warmth, comfort, and resilience in ways that were both simple and extraordinary. She returned the horse to the barn, brushing its coat and speaking softly, grateful for the unwavering companionship it had provided through years of life's ups and downs. The evening quiet enveloped them, a reminder that understanding, empathy, and care could come in forms that surprised and sustained her. She left the barn with a sense of peace and fulfillment, carrying the knowledge that she had found a bond that would continue to nurture her heart and spirit for years to come. That night, as she drifted into sleep, her thoughts were filled with the horse's gentle presence, its steady eyes, and the quiet assurance it had offered her through all the days and nights. She knew that life was richer and more meaningful because of this connection, and that the love and understanding she had found in her horse would remain a guiding and comforting force. The story of her life, intertwined with this remarkable companionship, was a reminder that emotional bonds could be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes those bonds were the most profound and life-changing of all.